Good evening and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi. We are honored to have with us tonight Huwaida Arraf, who's the chairwoman of the Free Gaza movement, and she is one of the organizers of these boats that sailed to Gaza. Now, how long of a trip from Cyprus to Gaza in that boat? How long does it take?
The trip is approximately 225, 230 nautical miles. Now, the boats that we had are very simple, very, beat up boats, but travel very slowly. So with this boat that we were on, it was going to take us approximately, if all went well, around 30 hours
About 30
from
hours.
the port of Larnaca to the port of Gaza.
Okay. So now you left Cyprus, and how far were you from, Gaza when they intercepted you?
Well, about halfway, around about 100 miles out from Larnaca port. So we were well into still in international waters. We started receiving communications from the Israeli Navy and asking who we are, where we were going, and we identified ourselves and that we are headed for the port of Gaza.
Oh.
They came back with us threatening, saying that they order us to turn around because we're entering a blockaded area and that there's a threat to our safety. So, again, issuing the order to turn around. And we responded to them really with the legal position of what is actually going on. Any kind of blockade that they impose on Gaza is illegal in and of itself because Israel is the occupying power in the Gaza Strip. So they are legally responsible under international law for the welfare of the people that they occupy, the 1.5 million Palestinians that are living under Israeli occupation. And as such, they cannot impose a blockade and completely block all kinds of things from coming in and out. That becomes collective punishment. So you can't impose a blockade or a siege on people when you're responsible for their welfare. And collective punishment, which is strictly prohibited under the Geneva Convention. So under Israel's obligations, they are obligated to let us in. As long as we don't constitute any kind of threat to their armed forces, they have no reason to keep us out. And we are very clear about that, which is why we have the Cypriot Port Authorities check us to make sure that we are not carrying anything that constitutes any kind of threat to Israel. We're very public about who we are. In fact, all of our pictures and bios are on the website. We hide nothing. And we are going to Gaza carrying a small amount of aid that we can carry. Our boat is very small. It comes nowhere near satisfying all the Gaza people. But in another sense, we don't expect to because it's not what we can carry what Gaza needs. Gaza doesn't need our charity. Gaza needs us to stand up to these illegal policies that are creating the catastrophe that has become Gaza. It's the humanitarian crisis in Gaza right now and the fact that they need all of these basic necessities, the fact that they don't have oxygen and anesthetics and basic medicine, that the kids don't have paper and books and pencils and crayons, that they can't learn, that they can't rebuild the thousands of homes and hospitals and schools that were demolished during Israel's December-January raid. This is all part of a deliberate policy to punish the people, to break the Palestinians of Gaza, and it's really distressing and horrifying that our respective governments are doing nothing about it. And so our message is we will carry whatever we can on what humble means we have and attempt to get to Gaza because we have to challenge these brutal Israeli policies. And we're willing to put ourselves out there. And we really hope that our governments will wake up and do the right thing and follow suit because it is unacceptable that they accept these kinds of blatant human rights abuses that translate into war crimes being committed against the Palestinian people and that they are silent about it.
Okay. So now, again, you were in international waters when they kidnapped the boat and everybody who was on it. Now, the charge is that they are...
Sorry.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry to cut you off. Let me clarify that. They started threatening us in international waters. We kept responding that we are continuing to Gaza. And in the middle of the night, again, when we were in international waters, they gave us what they called a final warning, or they would open fire on us. If we are able to salvage any of our tapes, which they took when they boarded our boats, you could hear the recording where they threatened to open fire on us when they knew we were unarmed civilians. We kept proceeding, but the actual point was, and we were followed at the whole time by anywhere between 5 and 8 Israeli gunboats. But it wasn't until the point that we actually crossed from international waters into Gaza's territorial waters by our, calculations. Actually, at one point for a few hours in the middle of the night, they completely jammed our radars and our GPS system, and our captain was navigating by the stars at night. They jammed everything. And even before we were about to enter into Gaza's territorial waters, I radioed the UN because I could hear the UN ships in the area. I radioed the UN to let them know that we are being threatened by Israeli pirate ships, and we request their assistance to help us bring this ship carrying aid into Gaza. After I radioed the UN a couple of times, they start sending white noise across the international channel 16, which is the channel that all boats in the area are supposed to be able to communicate on. They started sending white noise across that, so we couldn't communicate with any other boats in the area, and they couldn't communicate with us. We made what phone calls we could on our satellite phones that were still working, and then we started heading into Gaza. And as soon as we crossed over that kind of into Gaza's territorial waters, they descended upon us really quickly, like it was a raid, a commando raid. There had dozens of masked men that came up against our boat and jumped on the ship. I was standing right next to them when they kind of jumped on, and so was my husband Adam, who was documenting for us. They immediately went after him and his camera and dragged him into another area. And I only found out recently, after talking to him briefly today, that he was beat up pretty bad. His camera and his tapes were taken, and other cameras on board were taken. Some of us were tied up, but we were all hauled into a certain area when they took control of the wheel from the captain, and then started driving the boat in a really reckless manner where people were thrown all over the boat until about 5 hours later they dragged us into the port of Ashdod, took us out.
What time was that, Huwaida, when they boarded the boat? What time was that? Do you remember?
Approximately 3:30
in the morning
p.m. on Tuesday afternoon.
Okay. Now, what gives Israel the right to control Gaza's waters if they left Gaza, as they say?
Right, they do say. They try to claim that they've left Gaza and that they are no longer occupying it. This, of course, is a farce because, under international law, the measure of whether or not a territory is occupied is by how much effective control another power has over this territory. So Israel controls Gaza by air, sea, and land now. And as we see, they control Gaza's seas. They control Gaza's airways. They control Gaza's land borders. And therefore, they do have effective control over this area. They can invade anytime they want. So to say that because they pulled out the military installation and settlements, which were illegal in Gaza to begin with, to say that now they do not occupy Gaza is a farce, and it's been called out by international and Israeli human rights and humanitarian organizations. So under the laws, under international law, an occupying force, they are responsible for the welfare of the people. Now that does give them the authority to control what goes in and out, but that kind of control is supposed to be exercised to the extent that the occupying power ensures its own kind of safety and order. That is not what that's not what Israel is doing. Israel is imposing collective punishment on the people because they don't like the government that the people have chosen for themselves. And so they want to try to break the people to get the people in Gaza to revolt. Again, that's collective punishment, and it's strictly prohibited by Article 33 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which governs, which kind of dictates the law of occupation. So if we want to, just go by, a lot of people, of course, now, the occupation in itself, since it's been ongoing for over 41 years, and occupation, the laws of occupation when first conceived were not, again, conceived to go on for so long. It was supposed to be a temporary arrangement. Israel has made it almost a permanent arrangement, and during this time continues to carry out illegal policies like confiscating more and more of the occupied land, etc. So in a sense, it's also an illegal occupation. But if we want to pretend that Israel is, going to abide by the laws of occupation, what they are doing right now is a blatant violation.